Hello, members. Tom Morrison here from the Metal Treating Institute in Nashville, Tennessee. We're like 2 minutes late. I'm sorry. Just trying to get things squared away here technology-wise. We're on board and ready to go. And today we're going to talk about CMMC compliance. That is bugging people out, complex scenarios. We're so fortunate to have Nick Espinosa on our team to really guide us through this process. He's been doing this for the last year and a half, and we're moving towards a place where hopefully we're going to see some light at the end of the tunnel. So I want to remind everybody, you got the chat room. You can click at the bottom, and you can, if you have any questions you want to present, you can present them in the chat room. I'll be monitoring that, and I'll ask Nick those questions. We really want you to be well informed and know what you need to do on CMMC because it's coming fast and furious, and you're going to need to have that in order to do business with the Department of Defense. And now, one thing I want to there's two areas that you have great opportunities for. One is posting in the MTI forum. But the other thing that you need to look at is our new Wallybot AI program. We typed in there about a month ago, give us a checklist for complying with CMMC 2.0 and make it comprehensive. And I popped it, and our Wallybot AI assistant kicked back this checklist, which I then gave to Nick, and Nick said it was very comprehensive. So you've got an immediate opportunity on your phone, on your app for Wallybot, and on our website at heattreat.net. You can go in there and ask the particular questions and see what it pops back because we're uploading stuff on CMMC on a constant basis. So Nick, welcome to the show.
Hey, it's good to be back. It's always fun hanging out with you, Tom.
So give us a sense of kind of just the emotions of CMMC and like where it's at and what's going through people's minds that you're talking to.
Oh, well, we're getting closer and closer to the finish line here, in terms of actually having this thing come to live or come to life rather. And so essentially what we're seeing is companies moving as quickly as they can because if you didn't know, basically the first phase, which is the year 2025, essentially they've started slowly baking in CMMC level 1 and 2 requirements, into contracts, which obviously is going to ramp up. And then we're expecting in 2026, phase two, to really start, putting a lot of these requirements in contracts with the level 2 certification process coming into full swing. Companies are already getting certified. They've been getting certified, for the last year or two. But yeah, it's been a mad dash for some, and others just continue to ramp up. But it's here, and it's coming to fruition sooner than later.
So when you look at 2.0, what is the big differences between 2.0 and the original concept of CMMC?
Yeah, so 2.0 is the one we've been running on for the last couple of years now, and it basically simplifies the CMMC. It streamlines it more. So the original 1.0 had 5 levels that you'd have to get through, level 3 being the one metal treaters would be most likely looking at, and that got shrink down to 3 levels. And so by virtue of that, now we're all at level 2, but it also removed some third-party practices that weren't really up to federal standards and some other stuff. So it is more straightforward. I'm not saying it's not complex. It's
Right.
110 controls, 320 objectives in those 110 controls, but it is a lot more streamlined and a little bit more plain English, which people are kind of appreciating. Let's put it that way.
So for the heat treaters out there, they're like, you know what? Nah, I'm just not gonna pay attention to this. I'm just gonna kind of roll through what is the importance to a heat treat company as to why they need to make sure they are meeting this compliance?
Yeah, yeah. So if you're watching this, I'm assuming you're one, a heat treater, obviously you're an MTI member, but you also probably are at least interested in this and you might be in the defense industrial base, meaning you're not necessarily a prime contractor, for the US military, but the prime contractors, aerospace, think warfighting capability, basically they have flow down requirements as you are treating whatever you're treating for them. And by virtue of that, to handle that controlled unclassified information means you need a CMMC level 2. So CMMC 2.0 basically ensures that you are implementing the right cybersecurity protections in place
Right.
to avoid things like intellectual property theft, all that kind of stuff. That's why we're going for certifications, and the military is really coming down like a ton of bricks, with this one.
So, I mean, for the last couple of years, I mean, deadlines has been everything. So, I mean, so looking forward, we got them in the past. Now, looking forward from here to the next 12 to 18 months, what are some of the key deadlines that members need to be making sure they're tuned into?
Yeah, yeah. So like I mentioned, earlier on, phase one, which is what we're in right now, and I'll go to a little specific on that. Phase two essentially begins next year. And then by phase three, 2027, essentially that's when the level three stuff kicks in. So we're focusing on 2025 and 2026 for metal treaters. So some of the specific dates that we've got, like, so on July 23rd, the DoD submitted the actual rules to the Office of Management and Budget, or OMB. That's like the penultimate check before this thing goes live. And so by virtue of that, it actually had a clause in it that said that the requirement for CMMC certification is coming to DoD contracts starting on October 1st of this year. So we're less than 2 months out, basically, from this really starting to come to fruition. And so
Right.
essentially, if this is finalized as planned, you're going to need to be CMMC compliant, most likely CMMC level 2 certified to start winning new DoD business this fall. And so, this is a big push that we're seeing. We're getting near the end, so hopefully our audience has been working on it, right?
So what I mean, when you got deadlines, inevitably somebody misses the deadline. I mean, what happens if you miss the deadline?
So if you miss a deadline, I mean, I think it's important to know that the Department of Defense is not looking at this like an all or none from everything I've read. And I'm literally sitting in like, those CMMC AB meetings and all this kind of stuff, is that they understand that there are those companies that are still coming to fruition in terms of getting certifications or getting near level 2 and getting ready for these certifications. So there is going to be a grace period as written right now, and we're assuming they're not going to change that. That gives you another 6 months or so to really start moving down this road. So I'm not necessarily losing sleep on missing deadlines at this moment, but understand when this fully comes to fruition, and August 1st is a major date on this, it basically the window of time for missing those dates is closing, right? So we should be up and running or getting there pretty close.
So are there levels of compliance or just one big compliance to me?
Well, the levels are the level one, level two, level
Right.
three that we talked about before. And level two is where metal treaters need to be to handle controlled unclassified information. It's 110 individual cybersecurity controls, and it has 320 objectives baked into those 110. And so getting everything in place, proper logging, encryption, access control, like all these different kinds of things, threat intelligence, yada, yada. There's a ton that goes into this. But everybody should be heading down the road now. Like this, there's no time to waste anymore.
So what kind of things, when you look at the controls and all those things, what kind of things should they be have done right, like right now? Where should they be in in that preparation?
Well, right now, I mean, if we're talking about getting started, right? Like part of this is you should have your assessments done. You should have your system security plan done, your data diagram flow controls done. You should have submitted a SPURS score. That's the Supplier Performance Risk System score. Even if your score is terrible, don't lie and say, "Oh, I'm 110 out of 110." Just submit the score. They know you're not gonna be. And people started doing that right out of the gate years ago. And the CMMC, the military started suing some of their own contractors for wildly lying. So get all of that stuff in, because that signifies getting that SPURS score in. That signifies to the military that you're drinking the Kool-Aid, that you're going to be with them, that you can then go to your customers that are giving you this military work, these prime contractors, and tell them, yeah, we've submitted a score, we're drinking the Kool-Aid, we're not there, but we're getting there. And I think that's an important one to consider.
So is the assessment a self-assessment?
So you would start kind of with a self-assessment, but I highly recommend getting somebody that would be qualified to basically walk you down this. I've seen people take the SPURS scoring, which you can just go download. It's a free download off the military's website, and go through it and say, oh yeah, we're doing this, and they check that box, and then they check that box, and they check that box, and then their score is amazing. And I come in and say, hold on, there's objectives. You're not doing this to the specifications. And that score is also all or none. So if you're halfway through, let's say a control that's worth 5 points, and you have, let's say, roughly three of those points done, you get 0 points per the actual scoring until you get all five done, right? For that one control. So a lot of people don't understand how to properly score this. And then once you have, let's say, a legitimate score and you start to understand where your deficiencies are, you're going to need to plan, right? We're going to have to put
Right.
together some kind of methodology to say, okay, these are the big rock things you need to start really working on to get further down that road. A lot of companies will start with like the low hanging fruit. Oh, we need this, we need that. Well, maybe you do, but maybe there's something bigger than that and then what you needed fits into that bigger box, and you're fixing that bigger box first. So I would highly recommend getting professional help on this.
So you've worked with some of our members, correct?
I do, yeah, happy
So,
to.
so, so what are some of the key vulnerabilities and gaps that you're seeing? One, if they're early on versus somebody that's down the road and got a little bit more, they're more technologically advanced.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's a couple of different things. Obviously, metal treaters range in size, right? So by virtue of that, you might have a 10, 20 employee metal treater, you might have hundreds of employees, and in between. And so what we see when we are dealing with metal treaters or talking with metal treaters, and we do love us the metal treaters, you're all good folk. We see oftentimes a lack of things like multi-factor authentication, especially for things like remote access or administrative accounts, cloud services. All of this is basically required in the CMMC. On top of it, removable media, like so flash drives, all that kind of stuff. Oftentimes, these things aren't controlled when they should be. I mean, what's stopping me as an employee from copying sensitive data onto my personal flash drive? I got at Best Buy and then going home with it, right? These are things we have to account for. That's obviously a huge one as well. Let's see, logging and auditing is actually incredibly important, especially for forensics. And most metal treaters I've seen don't have centralized log collection or monitoring of these kinds of things. And retention, obviously, you want to keep this because if, God forbid, you have a data breach or something, that logging becomes beyond critical. Every metal treater has outdated systems. I'm not necessarily talking about Windows, but y'all bought PLCs back when the Macarena was popular, and you're still running them because they never die. They never die.
Right.
Well, there is specific scoping guidance, basically from the CMMC, that tells you how to handle and treat these things, right? Because you're like, well, I can't patch this. They haven't made patches for this in 20 years, but I'm still going to run it because I'm not going to replace it. Well, there's ways to handle that. And so properly scoping that, handling that, data encryption is another big one that we see as well. That tends to have some issues, or not, firewalls that really aren't worth their own salt. But overarchingly, I think all of these things really come down to things like a lack of policies and procedures. Like we see a real deficiency in the policies and procedures. And when you're talking about any compliance framework, you live and die on the paperwork on this one because it's the framework of how you are operating, who you are as an organization, and the controls that you're training your people on. Hey, you can't go to these kinds of sites, but you can go to these kinds of sites or whatever it is. So having all those things in place, I think, is just absolutely beyond important for any organization, and especially metal treaters as well.
So there are some heat treaters that have built their own shop management systems, and there's really
Sure.
two major ones. A third one is coming along. What kind of conversation should they be having with their shop management software provider?
Yeah.
All these are online web-based systems.
Right, right. Well, and this is actually an incredibly critical question, Tom. And the reason B is cloud systems have to meet what's called a FedRAMP authorization or FedRAMP certification. Those are two different things, but they're equivalent, and they have to do it to the moderate level. In other words, there are three levels. There's low, moderate, and high when you're talking about FedRAMP. This is the CMMC for cloud providers. In other words, they are in the federal system. They are attesting to at least 330 odd controls. They got it worse than CMMC level 2 people do. But your cloud providers, if you are storing or handling that controlled unclassified information in their cloud, has to meet those standards. And if it doesn't meet those standards, you're technically out of compliance, which means you're doing something illegal. So make sure that you've got that. And I will also say this because I know a lot of metal treaters, not just under CMMC, also do ITAR work, right? This International Trafficking in Arms.
Right.
That actually has a FedRAMP high requirement. So if you're putting this in, OneDrive in Microsoft in the commercial cloud, Microsoft has a FedRAMP version that you can switch to that will make you compliant. And there's a whole bunch of other providers out there. And that really also opens up the question on how are you handling your data? Who has access to your data? How does your data flow through the organization? We had that conversation, Tom, with your members. What was it, Myrtle Beach or Hilton Head in South Carolina a
Yeah.
couple of years
Yeah.
back, where if you separate the recipe from the actual like shop order, then the recipe could not be reverse engineered by the Chinese or whoever. So that's handled differently. But the actual shop order that's stamped or marked CUI or ITAR or whatever it is actually has these requirements around it. So cloud providers become beyond important. And I know some in your industry, in terms of the software development, have also said, well, to get around that, we're not going to go through the FedRAMP hoop jumping, which is a lot of hoops to jump. We're going to put a server in your office or in your building. So now it's physically there, and we will offer you software patching and updating per compliance standards. But now you, Metal Treater, are going to have that inside your building, and you're going to handle it yourself. And I've seen a lot of that, not just in metal treating, but in other fields as well.
Right. Well, a couple of questions have popped up. So one of them has asked, are they pushing to be third-party certified with the C3 POA firm?
Yes, yes. What you want. So as you're going, you don't need a C3PAO until the end. What you need before that is basically either like an RPO, which is a registered practitioner, or somebody that is CMMC readiness, can do CMMC readiness for you to help you get down that road. Then you'll go through an internal audit to make sure everything's there, and then you hire a C3PAO to actually come through and certify you. And that stands for Certified Third Party Assessing Organization. And yes, the military has made it very clear that they want you certified, not just attesting to this. Now, that said, I have been writing comments as comment periods have been opened, on behalf of metal treaters and some other industries like construction and all of that, where I'm trying to see if we can get carve outs or set asides, or at least put it in their ear to say, hey, like, metal treaters are a different animal in the sense that, you might be treating parts on a weapon, but you're not making the weapons. You know what I mean? You don't have a stealth fighter, in your backyard as you're metal treating this thing, so maybe we can focus more on the self-certification or self-attestation side of it. But right now, the military, they've made it pretty clear that they want you to go through a C3 PAO.
So thank you for that answer. Here's another big question. So big question, Nick. How can we be compliant when we're not getting CUI proper labeling from both primes and tiers? There's
Yes.
thousands of DoD POs, specs, drawings every day, and we only seeing two POs that are properly identified. I know it is ultimately our responsibility to protect the disclosed information, so I have to treat all jobs, including commercial work, as CUI.
Yeah, well, Tom, we just made this entire webinar open bar for all of our members because this is one of those big issues that we have right now. Is that, and this is also something the military is looking at really cracking down on with their prime contractors to properly mark and label anything and everything. So understand that if you're dealing with a prime contractor and they say, hey, we need you to treat our parts for us, whatever you're going to do for them, and they're sending you this information, there's actually a shared responsibility there. In other words, if you are looking at this as the metal treater and saying, hey, I think this actually is CUI, but I'm not sure, you actually have a responsibility to go back to the prime contractor and say, hey, like, is this CUI? Please tell me how to handle this. I'm not saying you have to handle everything like CUI, but you should be investigating this. And also, they baked in some new language in September of 2024 that we're waiting to see if it's going to make the final rules. That was actually kind of concerning. I think actually, Tom, we talked about this last time, was that it seems like anything like that, it needs to be handled like an actual data security incident and reported to, not necessarily reported to the military, but reported to the prime contractor. And part of that language, I suspect, is because of exactly what that question is. And so understanding those differentiations, I think, are beyond important, but it is a shared responsibility at the end of the day. And for the record, that problem I don't think is going away anytime soon. Because I know I have, for the record, prime contractors as clients,
Right.
for CMMC and other stuff as well. They're going to level three, and this is part of their training regimen for the people that would actually generate something to send to one of their subcontractors, like a metal treater, to make sure that these things are properly stamped and marked. So I think it's going to improve over time because they don't want to get fined, they don't want to get penalized in some way by the DoD. But until that happens, that shared responsibility means you're just going to scrutinize the documents. And if you think it is, I would treat it as such until you get confirmation. And again, if you're getting like 100 orders from this one client and every one order is legitimately CUI, I'm not saying treat the other 99 as CUI. I'm just saying look at it and say, hey, wait a second, this doesn't seem like one of the 99 just regular commercial stuff. This seems more military. I'm going to ask. And that's right now how we're handling those things. But that's a really important question. That's a good one.
Right. So when we talk about documentation processes, how important is it to like be documenting everything? And are there any resources or templates for the smaller companies to be able to assess and do those things?
Yeah, well, couple of different things. Because I just saw Bob's answer here in the chat. So the answer is to treat every job as CY. We have no time to go back and research. And Bob, for the record, I totally get it. You know, you got to move fast. You've got a lot of stuff to do. I'm not saying go back and research. I'm saying as you get this and you're reading this, if you're thinking, hey, this might be CY, fire off an email to the prime and just keep on rolling. And as soon as they come back and say, oh, yeah, it is or it isn't, you've got an answer. That's all I'm saying, and you've done your due diligence there. That's it. So I'm no research needed beyond, asking whoever sent this to you if it is or not. Let them research it, not you. So to be fair. So your question was documentation, templates, all these kinds of things, right? Um, yes, there are a couple of different ways to get different types of documentation. Obviously, the military supplies quite a bit. But when we were talking about policies like an acceptable use policy, an information security policy, all of that, I'll give you a couple of different pieces of advice. I've seen people go and purchase like a document kit that should have every relevant policy or procedure that they need. And then essentially what happens is they try to adapt how they operate to the template, meaning, oh, this is best practice. I'm just going to go ahead and do what the template says. And it drives everybody up a wall because now everybody's got all of these different controls and procedures, right? That they now have to adjust to. Where what you could be doing right now could actually be compliant. So adapt the policy to what you're doing. But make sure that what you're doing actually is compliant. Don't just change the policy and say we do it this way and that way is out of compliance. That's why I'm saying if you've got third-party experts that can help you with CMMC, that's the best thing that you can do is run it by them to see. The other side of it is I think one of the best resources for managing compliance, whether it's CMMC or ITAR or ISO 27001, take your pick, is to get a GRC platform, governance, regulation, compliance platform. These have the layouts of the frameworks and the controls that you're going to need. Most of them have all the templates for policies that you can then ingest and start editing, all that kind of stuff. You can also have a third party create it based off of templates as well. Most cybersecurity consultancies offer services like that also. So there's a lot of different ways that you can do it. But at the end of the day, no matter what you do, make sure the policies speak to what you're doing and what you're doing is compliant. And I would highly recommend getting a GRC platform out of just out of the gate. The management of your compliance and its ability to connect to a lot of your cloud resources to collect evidence for you will be a massive time saver, and it's well worth the money. So big fan of those.
So, and I take it that you obviously, Nick, could help members do that, correct?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, that's it's part of the day job. Yes.
Right. So type your email in the chat so people know how the best way to get a hold of you. And so for somebody that wants to say use somebody that's in their neck of the woods, so kind of give a laundry list of what a company should be doing to vet a consultant or a registered representative to help them with this process. What questions should they be asking? What should they be looking for in order to know they've got somebody that can do the job?
Right. Well, I mean, the first things first is it's a twofold thing. Is the organization that you're contacting in the CMMC AB or accreditation body? Do they have an account there? Like are they in the ecosystem? And then the other side of it is the certifications that the user or rather the consultant would have. So there are consultants that have certifications like SEC ISP that are very heavily focused on NIST 800-171. Those very much align with the standard CMMC RPO, which is a registered practitioner organization or RP registered practitioner. So those align very well. So look at the certifications of the person that's going to be helping you. So the company could be in the CMMC AB, but you don't want the junior person that's, oh, I'm just learning this. No, you want the person that has, a certification that is either an RPO, RPA, RP, or equivalent to that, like an SCC ISP, and a couple of others. But those, I think, are, if you're staying in that realm, you're going to get qualified help. And I think that's an important one to understand. Oh, and I'll put my email in chat. There you go.
There we go. So what kind of time, any kind of budget or time that you could relay to people what to expect when you start running. Some people, I'm sure there's people that haven't started yet. I'm sure there's people that are walking, and there's some that are jogging and some that are running. But I mean, what should you be looking to be investing and time-wise and potentially money-wise, a range?
So money is very hard to slap a number on. I've oftentimes said on stage this could be $20,000, or it could be $200,000, or it could be way more, depending on you as an organization. So it really depends on how far along the road in cybersecurity and data security you are. Maybe you've got a lot of controls, and without knowing it, you're 60, 70% there, in which case you don't have much to do, right? Or you just have to add or enhance to what you're doing as well, get policies and procedures in place, or maybe you've got nothing, right? We don't know what we're doing. We don't have any policies or procedures. We've never needed it. We don't care. We have our computer equipment, but we have all the basics. And okay, you're going to need a lot more work, right? It's going to take you longer to go down that road because there's going to be a bigger investment there. The other side of it is the size of the organization, right? Those cost structures are based oftentimes on employee count. If you've got 100 employees that need licensing for threat detection on their computers, it's a lot different than if you're just licensing 10 employees or 1,000 or 10,000, right? So it's very hard to understand that. I would expect the initial assessment to usually be, let's say, anywhere between 10 to 20 grand. These assessments take a while as well. If you're doing it properly, because it also gives you time to prepare. Then you've got the other costs like writing policies. Even if you're doing it yourself, there's going to be an internal employee cost for that. The last document kit I think we put together was 60 or 70 policies. For this. So there's a lot that goes into that. In terms of cost. So it's very difficult to say what an actual cost would be. Now, the other side of it, though, interestingly enough, is you also have in CMMC the ability to enclave. So I'll give you an example. If let's say you have 100 employees as a metal treater, maybe 5 of your employees actually handle the CUI, the sensitive data. And so you can wrap a whole bunch of security around them. You can get a smaller cloud provider just for them that is compliant. And so now you've got this hardened separate network to handle the CUI, and that cost footprint goes way down, as it also does the time to actually complete the project. If you're going through your entire network and you're like, oh my God, we've got these like 30-year-old PLCs everywhere. Well, that's a much different scope, right? Than it's like 5 people, 5 computers, done. So you've got a lot of different ways that you can cut this. Some organizations are going to have to do everything, right? Because everybody handles this in some way, shape, or form. Others don't. So these are the things that qualified professionals can also help you to determine as well. And I have clients going through both, that they're going through Enclave and they're also going through just the whole shebang.
So Bob Hills shots another question. So we get 100 orders per day that has to be turned around in 2 to 3 days. Being in the commercial shops all the time, what are most people considering CUI? Prints, drawings, purchase orders, pictures.
Yeah. So it's a good question. Depends on the industry, but in metal treating, again, and to Bob's original question, because I believe Bob was the one that asked about stamping and marking and they're forgetting to do it.
Yeah.
Obviously, anything that your prime contractor is telling you is CUI is CUI, and they are determining that for you. Usually, when we are separating in the metal treating world, we're separating recipes from like the actual order that you're getting from the client, meaning you're taking that recipe and you're programming it into a third-party system. We are not considering that CUI because that alone cannot be reverse engineered. But the documentation, let's say they're sending you a PDF with everything broken down and it's stamped and marked CUI, that as a whole needs to be protected as such. So that could be drawings, markings, all that kind of stuff. It could also be considered physical parts depending on the prime contractor as well. So there are cutouts and carve-outs in NARA, the National Archives Record Administration, to say, hey, here's a part and we're going to stamp it. We're going to put a label on it. We're going to do something that makes that then CUI. So and for the record, I've yet to see a metal treater get that, but you should be prepared for that because if that part is being treated as CUI, then you need physical security around it. Like it needs to be locked away when it's done being treated before it's shipped, the chain of custody, all those kinds of things. But to the basically the text that you wrote, Bob, yeah, prints, drawing, order, purchase orders, anything marked or stamped and all of that. Invoicing and stuff like that usually isn't because it doesn't have any technical data on it. You're just sending them a invoice for money. But yeah, what you mentioned here could be considered CUI. But again, it's on the prime contractor to tell you. And the shared responsibility again is if you think it is or you get an inkling it is, just fire off an email and ask, just to make sure. So, but yeah.
So Nick, what are some of the big pitfalls you've seen heat treaters make that cost them money or time or maybe compliance?
Yeah, so I mean, this is this is a tough one. I mean, I think the first thing is underestimating timelines. Oh, we're gonna get this done in 6 months. Well, probably not. You're not getting that. You're not, you might get this done in 12 to 18 months. Or maybe you've got it really down. But I see that quite a lot where there's a certain expectation and then the resources aren't given, or it's too complex or more complex than they think. And so by virtue of that, we start extending deadlines as a result of that. Another big one is skipping any kind of gap assessment and just starting to implement controls. So the way the assessments typically work for the Spurs scoring is the biggest overarching controls are 5 points, the medium ones are three, and then the basics are 1 point. And so usually if you're getting those 5 point ones done and in place, they usually check the box for the 3 points and the 1 points and all of that. The other big one is neglecting documentation. We see that all the time, and that's not unique to metal treaters at all. Nobody likes paperwork, but compliance runs on paperwork, right? And so,
Right.
not having those documents done and then not managing those documents, going back and reviewing them, having meetings where there's notes, so the auditors can actually or the assessors can actually see, okay, you're maintaining and managing and improving on your documentation. That's a big one. The other side of it too is we all just make an assumption IT can do it. IT will install it and call it a day. No, like we're pulling in HR, we're pulling in legal operations, all this kind of stuff. Fundamentally, putting in a framework like this transforms how you operate as an organization. It's not just slapping in a firewall and antivirus and calling it a day. And then obviously another big one is cloud services. Almost every person that I deal with or every company that I deal with that's starting down this road oftentimes does not know they need to go to FedRAMP cloud. So that's a big one as well.
So anything that we've talked about a lot, anything going through your mind that I mean, do we cover everything, or do you think there's something that you could impart on the members that they need to take away from this as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to know that this isn't like a one-time task. We're not sitting here implementing these controls and then calling it a day. This is going to be basically essentially a living, breathing entity. We're not treating this as a checkbox kind of thing. This is a continuous cybersecurity program that is going to involve various aspects of your organization to maintain compliance. It's going to be reviews, it's going to be checks, it's going to be ensuring that everybody is properly trained. There's a lot that goes into these things. And so if you are failing basically to, not budget properly or allocate resources that you need for implementation, for tools, for firewalls, for antivirus, for software, whatever you need, cloud, et cetera, then it becomes a much more daunting battle. And by virtue of that, you may not get there. These are things that holistically have to be project managed. It's a very complex thing. And don't just focus on technical controls. Don't just install the firewalls and the antivirus and all of that. This is also physical security. It's access control for absolutely everything. It's response plans. It's training. It's there's a lot that goes into this. It's a big climb, but you can absolutely climb it. And I've been working with metal treaters that are doing exactly that, right?
Awesome. So I want to share with members where this checklist is. So if you go out to heattreat.net, that's our website, heattreat.net, and click log in and log into your account. And then at the top, you're going to click MTI Connect. That's our community and resource library. When you get on our resource library, this box pops up that says resource library. So log in, MTI Connect, resource library, and just hit the search bar and type in CMMC and hit go. And the checklist will be right there that you can download that we developed for you. So if you have any questions, you can email me at tom@heattreat.net. Nick, I appreciate the time today. You've been very informative. I'm sure that we're going to drag you back online in about another 4 to 6 months. Because like Nick said, members, this is not a one-stop shop checkoff thing. This is going to be ongoing. I can assure you that MTI is going to keep you at the front edge of being advised and all the things you need to know to be able to comply with this. But if you have any questions, I would do a couple things. One, I would go out to our Wallybot AI virtual assistant because it's reading all the stuff that we're putting in there about things. The great thing about Wallybot is unlike chat. Real quick, let me do this, Nick. I want to ask you one final question. What
Sure.
about those people that say, I'm going to go to ChatGPT and get what I need for policies or any of that kind of stuff? I mean, that happens with people right now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so we can usually tell when a policy's been written by AI. Um, it's very generic. It's not it overarchingly, it doesn't have the depth and complexity that your organization, any one of the metal traders here, would have, right? So when you're coming in with a generic access control policy that doesn't speak to who you are, what you're doing, or the challenges your employees may face and addresses that, then I think that's a huge miss. And so my favorite one we saw was we had a client that clearly asked Chat GPT to write an AI acceptable use policy for them. So the AI basically told them how to use AI or not, right? So by virtue of that, yeah, we don't typically recommend using AI for anything maybe but a primer, but yeah, don't have it write your policies and procedures. You're just it's not a good look, and we'll see right through it.
Well, and the great thing about Wallybot, Nick, is that, whereas ChatGPT is an open language model where it's getting stuff from everywhere and
Mhm.
it's been known to make stuff up, Wallybot AI, it's a closed-end learning model where the only thing in there is the data and information that we have plugged in it to learn from. So, like this video, it's going to be plugged into the Wallybot in the next week, and so it will learn from this and be able to spit out the things that we've talked about. So, like
Mhm.
you said, it's a good place to start from a heat treater standpoint because it's got the things that we've put in there.
Gotcha, gotcha. So I shouldn't start saying kill all humans, kill all humans, kill all
Right,
humans.
right, exactly. So Wallybot AI is a good place to at least ask the question to see if it gives you some information to start. So the hardest thing to do is to start. I had a friend say that
Right.
the finish line is not the hardest thing to do. The starting line is the start. So
Yeah.
do that. Another big thing, go out when you're logged into your account, you can hit our communities and you can send a note to 350 heat treaters over 1,400 professionals that's probably going through this with you and ask questions and you get immediate. Our members are great at giving feedback.
Yeah.
The other one is just email. If when you're logged into your account to in that Get Connected menu on the left there is a box that says the Cybersecurity Pro. You click that, it brings up a form that you fill out, and that goes directly to myself and to Nick. And Nick can respond to that with you. So lots of opportunities to get the resources you need to be compliant and stay ahead of this ballgame because it is complex and you need simplicity. So Nick, oh, wait a minute, we got one. Somebody asked. Oh, somebody asked a simple question. Where can they get this recording? Well, I will tell you within the next 30 minutes, this recording is going to be posted out on our YouTube channel and it's going to be posted in our open online forum. And you should get an email tomorrow morning from our forum. Everybody gets a notice when we post stuff out there that here's the replay to the email. So you'll have it by tomorrow morning for sure. So Nick, any last comments?
No, well, you know what? Yeah, I would say simply this. If you haven't started down the CMMC road, don't wait. And don't wait for a contract from like a prime contractor to force your hand. Most heat treating companies right now are underestimating the time, effort, coordination, et cetera, that it's going to take to get to level two. So get down that road, start with that assessment, get somebody qualified in your life, and then start building the system security plans, get everything going to basically show the military that you're drinking the Kool-Aid and keep on rolling. But start. Please start if you haven't.
And if you need an outside third party, obviously Nick has been vetted through MTI. He has spoken at many of our conferences. He's already working. He understands the metal treating community. So he's someone to email and tap into and see if you can't connect and use that services there. So members, we're here for you. Thank you for being a member. You're awesome. And remember, they're not strong. You're MTI strong. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time here on online.